I have a memory of when I was saved and when I was baptized. I remember that our pastor came downstairs to the Sunday school area. One of the teachers wanted him to come down and talk about baptism. And so he did. And of course, he at first was a little bit reluctant. He didn't think that the students down there in the basement were old enough to comprehend. Well, he got informed that he was not correct. He came down and told us all about baptism and what it stood for and so on. And he wasn't going to say anything more. And the teacher, she was a maiden lady, and expressed her opinions quite forcefully. She told him that we kids were capable of understanding and that we could be baptized. And I got on my high horse and I told the pastor, well, I was a Christian and I knew the Lord Jesus and I knew what it meant. And so then we met with those who were interested in being baptized, met with the deacon committee and the pastor, and we were questioned, and then they were sure that we really did understand, and they allowed us to be baptized. And our present pastor at that time, he left the church and went as a military chaplain. And so.
Until how old you were when you got baptized?
I think I was about 12, I think. That was a memory. And I was really indignant to think didn't think we knew enough to know. But some kids would not have known had they not been because they hadn't been brought up in the church to understand. But there were those of us that were. Another thing my brother did that was not nice.
Which brother?
Bill. He and the hired man, they were in cahoots together. They were trying to get me to sit down at this place. We were unloading hay, which involved pulling a long rope back from the area to get ready to put another fork full of hay in the barn, in the hayloft. It's kind of hard to understand to people who are not farm people. But anyway, my brother kept pointing to this one area, and the hired man was egging him on and telling him to have her sit down. Dumb me. Should have known better. I sat down, but I got up in a hurry. I sat on a bee.
Oh, no, that was mean.
And that didn't feel too well. But I remember my mother was pretty upset about that. And she got after my brother. I think she did a lot of the discipline in my home. Oh, one night, I don't know where Dad was, but anyway, Mom heard, it was dark, or getting dark. She heard a noise in the chicken yard. She wondered what was going on. So she went out, here was this young kid, and he was going to steal the chickens, as many as he could, I guess. And when Mom saw him, she grabbed something, and she chased him all the way up the hill to prevent him from taking those chickens.
Hmm.
And Mom was lame because she had had polio when she was really tiny. So she couldn't run the fastest, but she could run fast enough to get that young man straightened out. So those are some memories. How did I meet your dad? Well, I think your grandma probably did introduce us.
Which grandma?
What do you think?
Grandma Douglas?
Yes. I wasn't all that interested in that time. I was more interested in young man number 2, who was your Uncle Bill. Oh, you had a brother. I had a brother, Bill, and Dave had a brother, Bill. And I was more fascinated with Dave's brother at that time. But then things changed eventually. And as time went on, then I could see that number 2 would not be the one for me. So, let's
Want to talk about your wedding?
Okay. All right. Let's see. I was married in October 1948. And it was a happy time and a sad time. Sad time because my mother-in-law, to-be, was in the hospital with heart problems. So she couldn't be there for her son's wedding. And that was heartbreaking for her, I'm sure. Because she was the instigator of trying to get us together. So she missed out on her reward by not seeing the wedding, which was sad. And then after the wedding, we went into the parsonage, which was right next to the church, to change out of our wedding clothes. I couldn't wear my long white dress and veil. So we changed our clothes and we came out. We were going to get in the car and take off. And as we came across the porch to get down to the car, my two brothers, they grabbed me, hustled me into the car, and took off.
Your one brother and Dad's one brother.
Yeah.
Didn't they throw a pillowcase over his head or something?
Yeah, they did
blanket.
something to. And so after I'd gotten away, then they let him go. And they had done something to the car, to the distributor, I guess it was. And when he got in the car to start it, it wouldn't run. And he was really frustrated. Well, finally, one of the men of the church told him that there was a part missing there. And then they gave him the part so the car would start. And they told him where he could find me. Because we had it planned for time of meeting and a place of meeting. So they got there at such and such a time, at such and such a place, then you could connect. Well, Dave jumped in the car and took off and went to that area. But when he got there, I hadn't gotten there yet. So there was nobody there. So he goes back to the church to see what's going on. And they told him, well, maybe you got there too soon. So he went back to the spot. And sure enough, there I was. There we were sitting in the car waiting for him. And Dave was so mad to have that occur. And he came stomping over to the car and he grabbed the door and opened the door and he said to me, "Get out of there." So that's how we finally were connected together and we could go on with our honeymoon.
So tell which two brothers they were.
Brother Bill, that was my brother. Brother Bob, that was Dave's brother. Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't very nice.
But you thought it was funny.
And I thought it was funny.
But the fathers didn't either, right?
No, the fathers did not. Well, it wasn't a very good thing to pull off with Mom in the hospital and so on. She survived and everybody else survived. I remember the next morning, before we continued on farther than we had gone, we went to the hospital to see her. So she got to see the newlyweds.
And where did you go on your honeymoon?
We went to a place called Mohonk House. It's someplace down, not too far from New York City. And it's like a castle on a hill. Very elaborate and upscale. We think we stayed one night because it was expensive. But oh yes, when we got to our room, instead of having a nice big double bed, we had twin beds. And so we just picked one of the beds up and moved it and made a double bed. Yeah. A lot of exciting times. Oh yes, now when Alan was born, we were living in Syracuse, New York. And I have to think a minute to come up with. He worked in East Syracuse in a silver plating business. And there was an accident at the facility, which he never told me about till years later. Cyanide was used in the process of coating in some way. And something went wrong with one of the hoses that carried that solution. And it just exploded. And the stuff got all over. It could have been fatal. But Dave kept his mouth closed and his eyes closed. And they grabbed him and got him in a safe area. And of course, hosed him down with water to get him cleaned off and so on, but that could have been a very bad situation. But that was And then that business went bankrupt. So from there, we went to,
Rhode Island?
I think we went to, well, yeah, I guess it must have been.
Or did you go to Rhode Island first?
Yeah, we must have gone to Rhode Island first.
And there you worked in a
That's where, in East Syracuse, he worked in the
no, in Rhode Island you worked in a golf ball.
Yeah, I worked in a rubber, a factory that dealt with rubber products. One of the jobs I had to do was to inspect the dimples on a golf ball to be sure there wasn't gobs of rubber filling the hole.
Mm-hmm.
And that was,
Tedious?
yeah, you're supposed to do so many an hour, you know. I did that for a while, but before they had me doing that, I was on another job, and it involved a powder, and the air was full with powder, and I was allergic to it.
Mm.
So they put me in on the golf ball thing. And I did that for a while, and then also did the inventory for a while. And we were there at that place until it cut the staff, the workers, because of the economy. So both Dave and I got laid off. At that point, we moved back home, and we were living with my parents on the farm while Dave was looking for work. He did find a work at a gas station in Afton, New York, but of course he wanted some work in his field, which was chemical engineer. So he was able to get the job in Syracuse and worked there. And then they went on, I can't remember, well, we lost our jobs because of the economy. And then I worked at Tank and Tummy, which was a small restaurant. And the state police would stop by, and the officer had gone in to use the restroom, and the girl that was working with me, he had left his keys on a counter. That was not a very smart thing to do. So while he was in the other room, she grabbed his keys. When he came out, no keys to his car. Well, we finally returned them to him.
Oh boy.
That should have taught him a lesson.
Yeah.
You don't leave your keys on the counter. Oh. Then, let's see, is that when we went back to Bucknell?
Let's pause it.